That's right.
I just got a haircut, so getting married soon.
Oh, congratulations.
Good
Yeah.
to hear.
Hey, you dorks, this is Gunnar Hansen, Leatherface from the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and you are listening to The Dorkening.
Hi, I'm Brian Johnson, and although you probably accidentally stumbled across it and have no idea why you're watching it, you are in fact watching The Dorkening.
Hello, this is Tom Kenny, voice actor, the voice of the Ice King on Adventure Time, and SpongeBob SquarePants. Ah, meow. Oh, Gary the Snail, too. Hey, guess what you're filling your eye holes and ear holes with? The Dorkening! Oh, I love the Dorkening. Very popular in Ooh. And Bikini Bottom.
Hi, I'm Lou Ferrigno. You're watching The Dorkening. And you know what? You don't like me when I get angry, so don't get me angry. You better keep watching The Dorkening.
Hey guys, this is Felissa Rose, and you're watching The Dorkening.
Hey guys, it's Courtney Palm. We're shooting Death House, and you're watching The Dorkening.
This is Anthony Michael Hall, and you're watching The Dorkening. Stay tuned, my friend's going to show you what entertainment's all about, baby.
The Dorkening.
The Dorkening and all affiliated shows are not intended for anyone under the age of 18. The following may contain discussions or scenes that have adult situations, graphic violence, nudity, strong sexual content, and graphic language. This show is intended for mature audiences only. Viewer discretion is advised.
Rise and shine, my sinners. When Father Evil starts his day, he gets a little deadly. Deadly Grounds coffee has the richest, smoothest flavor you'll find anywhere. It's sinfully delicious. Once you go deadly, you never go back. Order yours at getdeadly.com. Coffee's so good, it's scary.
Hey, happy Monday, everybody. You're watching Creator Spotlight, powered by the Dorkening Podcast Network. And we have an awesome show scheduled for you today. And a little unfortunate news. It's fortunate, though. Patsy is not here today because it is his anniversary. So we want to wish Patsy and Ashes an amazing, amazing day. But as always, we do have Philip. How's it going, my friend?
Good, Leo. It's good to be here, and I hope your weekend was nice.
Oh, it was great. It was great. You brought a friend along with you.
I did. Yep. So someone join us because Patsy couldn't make it. And why doesn't he introduce himself?
Hello, I'm Johnny Noel. I'm a co-host from time to time from the Dark Discussions News Network, and I've known Philip for quite some time. Glad to be here.
Well, glad to have you. And we're also glad to have and honored to have our guest. He is not the serial killer or the comedian, Michael Stephen Myers. It is a pleasure to have you, sir. You are a Vietnam War veteran. You're a consultant with HBO for their Vietnam War stories. You're also a playwright. And does that describe you well, sir?
It does, indeed. And thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Thank you. First of all, it's thank you so much for your service. And it's an honor to have you.
Thank you. We have, being a Vietnam veteran, we have bittersweet emotions about that. I mean, because the way we were treated when we came home was quite different. So the words mean a lot when we hear them these days. And I always tell people, if you want to see a big, tough Vietnam veteran turn to jelly, just give him a hug and say thank you. Something we missed.
Yeah, and something that we should see more of, because I know you're right about it as well. But it's the people that do serve, they come back with a lot of pain.
They do indeed. When I first came back, I had a layover in San Francisco. I'd just been in the field the day before. I was an infantry officer. I had a rifle platoon. And I just left the guys in the field the day before, and they were warning me to keep a low profile, to not wear my uniform, to kind of stay hidden, which eventually I did. But when I had this layover in San Francisco, the first thing I saw across the street, and this was 1969, was demonstrators. And they were holding placards and banners and saying murderer, baby killers, and so forth. So I had to see that. And then I went across the Golden Gate. I wanted to find a quieter space. So I was heading for Sausalito. I took a taxi across the Golden Gate. And I noticed right away, everybody was in a hurry. And it's even today. Everybody's in a hurry. They always got to go a little faster, even to get to the next light, So I realized everybody was in a hurry. And I was wondering where are they going, and I realized they were just living their lives, didn't have anything to do with me. So I eventually got to Sausalito, a quiet town. And I remember I went in a lounge, and there was American people in there. And they were drinking and talking and laughing. For some reason, that really bothered me that they were laughing. They had the nerve to be laughing. And I wore my uniform because I was proud of it, even though the guy said to keep a low profile. I was saying, well, hey, wait a minute, this is America. My father was Navy, and my family's been military. So I was just another patriotic American Virginian doing my duty, So I wore my uniform, had my medals on it and stuff. And I was sitting on this little coffee table, little couch in the coffee table. My legs were up on the coffee table, sipping a red wine. I remember that. I was watching these little sailboats floating out in the water, very peaceful, trying to let go of everything, that I was safe, that I was home, that it was over, the heat, the blood, the guts, the guilt of living, I was the lieutenant, I lived when a lot of my men didn't. So, and these people were laughing and talking, and I realized I was just another soldier like they'd seen before, coming home from that, the unpopular war at the time. So, they didn't. They were busy, They were pretty busy. So I sat there alone, sipping red wine, watching the sailboats. I wanted someone to come over to me and pat me on the back even like now when we see soldiers, and I do it too, I'm proud of them. When they come home, I shake their hand and say, thank you for your service. Or if I see somebody in uniform, I thank them for their service, for serving. I'll hold that flag high. But when I got there, I realized that, nobody really cared, No one cared. Not a single one of those people laughing and having a good time gave two shits about me, So that was the number of experiences. Even in the 80s, I had somebody call me a baby killer. And then the movies were so terrible about us. So I was one of those guys that they referred to as the lost veterans. I eventually got divorced, and it's when I first went over to California and to get away from the East Coast for a while. And I used to drive, PTSD, I'd drive for hours. Sometimes I'd drive all the way across the country. And I didn't know what I was doing. Something was missing, So I ended up living in the Arcata, California, is the northern part of California, is where Humboldt State University is. It's about as far from San Francisco north as LA is south. So it's on the other extreme. So I went up to a place called Blue Lake, California, lived in the mountains in this area where it was all redwood forest, old logging roads, trails. And I lived in a trailer there for a year with my dogs. Didn't talk to anybody, talked to my dogs, And I was always afraid that when I would go down in town, it was concerning. This is really disconcerting because I was scared to death that somebody was going to actually have the nerve to try and talk to me, I didn't have anything. I didn't want anything to do with anybody's society. It wasn't until the mid '80s when I finally came down off that mountain and walked into a veteran outreach center for the first time, and I listened to a group, talking, and I didn't say much because there was a separation. I was an enlisted man for 3 years, granted, but then I became an officer, so I was an officer. So there's a separation, So I didn't want to interrupt. I didn't want to take charge or anything like that. So I listened to them talk, and I heard my story a lot. So then the facilitator, his name was Jack Jones. I'll never forget him. I think the last I heard of him, he was working with the VA in Hawaii, but he had been wounded, Marine. And he's had his education. He was working with veterans. And he took me in his office after the meeting, and he stood me in front of a full-length mirror. And he said, let me ask you a few questions. He said, are you having trouble with relationships? And I said, yeah, I've been divorced, and I just broke up with that, constantly going. And he said, how about jobs? Are you having trouble keeping the job? So I'd go from one job to the other job to the other job, like the driving, like living in the mountains. It's like, and he says, are you having trouble relating to people? Or do people bounce off you? And I'm saying, yeah. And so what are your feelings towards society? And I said, not good. And he said, well, look in the mirror. I said, what do you see? I said, well, I see me. He said, well, maybe you're the problem. And that's the first time the light went on in my head. And I realized it's okay for people to be people. It has nothing to do with me. They don't know what my experiences were. They don't know about the things that I went through as a 21 and 22-year-old man. That nowadays, oh, he's only 22. He's a kid. Give him a break. When I was 21 and 22, I was leading soldiers. The proudest thing I ever did in my life was to lead guys like you, Americans, in battle, combat. And the statistics. Here's an interesting statistic that you're probably not familiar with. The World War II combat veteran, the war that we won with all the parades, a good job and ticker tape parades in New York City and up in y'all's world and everywhere, and the pictures of the kissing girls and with the sailors and the parades and heroes, they won their war. And the average infantry soldier, combat soldier, now granted, I had my father, Iwo Jima, Leyte Gulf, Okinawa, had an uncle that flew B-17s as a young captain over Europe, 38 missions, 28, he became a member of the Lucky Bastards Club. He flew 38. Then he flew jets in Korea, and he was a forward air controller in Vietnam. So then I had an uncle at Normandy and Anzio and Battle of the Bulge. So they did their part. I was just doing my part. But the statistics of the combat and their wars in the Pacific were horrible, and D-Day. But the average infantry soldier in World War II, the big war, the war that we won, in 4 years, saw an average of about 44 days of actual fighting combat. Compare that with the Vietnam War infantry soldier. In 1 year, saw an average of over 200 days of actual fighting combat. It was a different kind of war. It was bloody. It was messy. You know, it's almost 60,000 of us died. And then to come home and people say, even your loved ones, you know, hey, forget about it. Vietnam's over. It was a mistake. You know, forget about it. You know, well, you know, there's people. You know, so I had a psychiatrist tell me, you're different than any other psychiatrist I've known, or any other Vietnam veteran I've known, because most of them turn and run and hide from Vietnam. Somehow you've turned around and embraced it. And then he suggested that I write as a catharsis. So I took 6 steno pads, sat out in front of my house in a little Volkswagen I had. I remember a Volkswagen, whatever it was, hatchback or something like that. 6 steno pads, and I just regurgitated everything I could think of. I just threw it out there, you know, because I'd been carrying this. It's like venting. It's a catharsis. It's like saying, okay, you know, I can't. How are you going to forget about it? How are you going to forget about something like that? So I regurgitated 6, filled them up really quick, and realized those 6 full steno pads hardly scratched the surface. It just opened my mind to how many things I went through. Like the average PTSD, like I'm a disabled veteran, and I get disability for wounds and for PTSD. And I used to hold my head down because of that a lot. And when I was in the mountains and stuff, hiding. And Vietnam veterans especially, they have, and we might have that problem now with Afghanistan veterans, but people hide. We're good at hiding. We've got this facade that people see, but inside it's a turmoil. And you can ask any veteran, you know, it's like yesterday. So. But PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, I went through what I call my post-Vietnam drift for 10 years. I call it a 10-year post-Vietnam drift, the mountains and trouble until those mid-'80s. But PTSD, you know, when you cut yourself, or unfortunately you get shot or hurt or something like that, you get a scar, right? And the scar is the sign of healing. You're always going to live with that scar, right? Yep. Like if you had heart surgery, you're always going to have that scar to show that you healed from heart surgery. And that's what I try and tell my veteran friends, and that scar, PTSD, is an emotional scar from the experiences. And people can get that from a plane crash, or seeing a murder, or somebody, you know, a car crash, or anybody can get PTSD, but you have to compound that for a combat infantry veteran. I used to always say, walk a mile in a combat infantryman's shoes before you try and teach them how to walk in yours, you know? 8 plus was mine. 8 plus traumatic events, you know, seeing people killed in front of you, dying next to you, and people that you send from point A to point B and having them die. And so it's really a lot of things for a 21 and 20-year-old person to carry. So on those hilltops in 1968 and 69, I joined my rifle platoon under fire during TET 68 on a mountaintop. And it was shoot 'em up, bang, bang. The very next fight up, my platoon sergeant was killed. But the PTSD is something that we were holding our heads down. Now we need to hold our heads up and be proud, because the number one thing I did that was the proudest thing I did in my life was to lead soldiers in combat. The second most honorable thing I ever did was when I came back, I was assigned officer in charge of funeral detail. So I was burying our soldiers at Fort Benning, Georgia. So we would have like 6 or 8 or 10 battles a month, sometimes a week. And then when I was burying our soldiers, it was like 5 or 6 people a week. because soldiers were still dying over there. So that became also my honorable moment. But a piece of me died on those hilltops. That's what I was saying a minute ago. A piece of me died on those hilltops. And so I was 21, but I was catapulted to an old man, because I'd already experienced in those 21 years, and a lot of us did, is more than most people will get to experience in a lifetime. So I was catapulted to today. But yet a piece of me today is still on those hilltops, you know? Yeah. So I have to live, and this is what I tell the guys, we have to live our lives in dignity. We have to hold our heads up and be proud of what we did, regardless of what society said or did, because if we did not do that, we'd be disrespectful to the young men, soldiers, brave guys that died in dignity and honor in that split second. Gone. You know, no more mommy, no more daddy, no more children, no more wife. Gone. And so we have to hold our heads high, and we have to live our lives in honor, and that helps veterans. I lived in that part of Northern California twice. Once was in the 80s, and once was at the turn of the century, after 9/11, as a matter of fact. But when I was in the 80s, at one point, I brought together a group of friends, and then I catapulted to the two. That's about when I came down off the mountain. And then at 2000, I had a lady that was a part of my life for 22 years. And I was an actor, so I went to act in Northern California. We had a house in Idaho at this time. And I left her in Idaho, and we watched 9/11 together in horror. And then I went back to California. And when I lived there in the 80s, before was when I was working with HBO's Vietnam War Story series, in the input, and one Tales from the Crypt. But when I went back in 2000, I had veteran friends and actor friends over, and a guy came up to me and said, "Michael, you said something to me 10 years ago that changed my life." And I said, "Well, what was that?" He said, "Well, I don't want to go there, but I just want you to know that you changed my life." And I thought, wow, that's really nice. So the writing that I'm doing now, the writing that I've been doing, is very rewarding, and I found that it's helping other veterans because it's healing, it's post-healing, it's families coming together and talking about, rather than hiding from it, talking about like people visiting and telling them how heroic their son died and so forth. But I found it healing, and one time I was in the audience in Silver Spring, Maryland, up by DC. I had one of my plays called The Healing of War, and it was about a lieutenant visiting the next of kin to his, based on my platoon sergeant visiting, and it was called A Healing of War. It healed the family and healed the veteran. And after it was done, Iraqi Marine came up to me. He may have been a veteran. I don't remember. He may still been active duty. And he shook my hand and said, "Thank you. You were there, weren't you?" And so I realized that my writing is helping the new veterans as well. So Healing of War became, I went to Texas. I remember the Collegiate Actress of the Year played the daughter. It went to Maryland, played in Virginia. So at the first 6 steno pads that I took, I put them all together and I made a play called Badges of Honor, because I'd been an actor. So I have to go back to watching 9/11, and then I went to California. I took my special dog with me. Patty and I watched 9/11 in horror like everybody else, watched the jumpers. And then I took my dog with me to California because I had to be in 3 plays. My dog got sick that December. Remember September? December, my dog got sick and died from cancer. And then before I could get home, I'd call Patty every day, see how she's doing, like you do with your loved ones. The next day, I couldn't get hold of her. That's all right. Next day, I couldn't get hold of her. That's not unheard of. The third day, I couldn't get hold of her. I called her mother, and her mother said, "Are you sitting down?" And I knew my world had changed. So that's when I came back to Virginia Beach, and that's when I finally put that play together, started writing, and put it went to partnership with a hotel, conference center and hotel here at Virginia Beach, and they did a dinner theater for me, and I produced the play and invited about 100 people, and they all came and thought it was really good. So I was encouraged, so I broke it down made it into 3 one-act plays, including the one I mentioned, The Healing of War. Entered it into a play festival, and it won the play festival. And it best play, best audience choice play. And I remember when we were rehearsing it, it was like 15 other plays, and the place was half full with actors and directors and stuff. And I said, "What are you doing here?" And they said, "Well, we heard this play was so good." So I knew I had something, I knew something was there. And then it started moving. And then I followed it up with I think I won 6 awards that year, and I followed it up with 3 more plays and won 7 awards. And then one of them ended up in South Africa, at the University of South Africa, and Texas, and down at Will Rogers Auditorium. So I knew that it must have been the combination of the writing and input I did with HBO and Tales from the Crypt, and then my experience as an actor. I bet you I've got 10 novels lying around, but I'm not a novelist, but I can write scenes. So that was the avenue that I went, which leads me to the work I'm doing now. I have two that are really, really good. And one is the actual treatment that I did for Tales from the Crypt that I owned. And I remember I rewrote it after 9/11 because I always felt we watched, and just yesterday, was it the episode was the 11th, right? It was yesterday. We watched again the repeat of, yeah. Well, we watched again just the repeat of people jumping to their death, And I heard of one group of 3 people that held hands and jumped. I mean, if you think about that, I'm familiar with that instantaneous death, Like, it's not unheard of for me to be, the 4 of us here talking, all of a sudden 2 of us are dead in a second like that. That's my life, So death to me is like an old nemesis that keeps coming. But we watch these jumpers, but we don't know who they were, right? Some of us do, but very few of us, most of us don't. We just know that we watched in horror as these people made this life and death decision. Do I burn to death? Do I lay down and not breathe and cough to death? Or do I jump, or do I go towards the air? Because the human's response is to naturally go to where you can breathe, right? So it's just like, that's why those soldiers are so proud, because usually you run away, but we're still moving forward into that dragon's breath, So I made a story called Billy and the One-Armed Bandit for Tales from the Crypt. Pretty ghastly story. And I walked into a casino in Wells, Nevada once, and there was a placard there, sandwich sign saying writing contest. Now, writing contest, and at a casino. So there was 3 categories, and one of them said, "What if you were sharing a room with at our hotel with F. Scott Fitzgerald and Ernest Hemingway? What would you talk about?" And I thought, well, that's pretty interesting, But probably most of the people that enter into the writing contest are probably going to pick that subject. So the second one was so insignificant that I think it was like, I don't even remember what it was. And then down on the bottom was the third selection. The third was almost like smaller print, like an afterthought. It said, "What a slot machine would say if it could talk." I thought, that's it. So then I created a Billy, which is a clairvoyant young lady, and she loses. And a real event happened in Northern California when I was up there. A lady was walking with her daughter, and a rogue wave came up, sucked her out, and the undertow got her and took her out and drowned her right in front of her mother. And I thought, how horrible. So then when I walked in, I thought, that's the category for me. My next thought, believe it or not, was the Muppets. It's just crazy, right? The Muppets, Ed Sullivan. The Muppets were when they were first introduced, they came on Ed Sullivan's show. And here's this little green frog sitting on a black, small grand piano, and he sings a lullaby. And then at the end, now the piano becomes this big teeth-eating monster that opens up with these sharp teeth, grabs Kermit, eats him, and burps. And I thought, wow, that was really funny, So I took that, and I decided right then that I needed to have the main character, Billy, this clairvoyant girl, meet a demon. This demon's been with her all her life, and she walks into this casino, and here she meets this demon. At the end of this thing, the demon eats her. And it was a real horrific story. It was the second most read play on the internet at one time, I think, when I rewrote it into a play form. So then after 9/11, I rewrote it again. and included jumpers. I included 3 people. They actually, the connection I have with the windows of the world, at one time in the 70s, I stood underneath those buildings and looked up. And I mean, it's dizzying looking at how tall those buildings were. It was unbelievable. And then after it happened, I just happened to be up there at the New York Film Festival. And I went out there for the first time and looked at it myself. I'm sure y'all probably have had the chance to do that. Looked at that area when they were still working on it, cleaning it, and finding people. And most people in the world don't realize that's 16 acres. That was 16 acres of buildings that fell. You know, it's huge. 3,000 people died. So I included jumpers. I put these 3 people, and my connection, as I was saying, that my son was going to Princeton. That's up in Yellow's area somewhere, Princeton University, right?
Yeah, in Jersey.
Yeah, he was going to Princeton, and he would meet his stepdad at the windows of the world every morning for breakfast or coffee, and they'd talk, and then they'd go about their business. And his stepdad would ride his motorcycle into the city, and they would meet every morning, except that morning. That morning, he had to have his motorcycle repaired, so they didn't meet that particular morning. So that's how close it was to me. So I took I rewrote Billy and the One-Armed Bandit, and of course, a lot of my characters are named Michael, a writer. So Billy's husband is Michael, and in the beginning, they go through that experience. They lose their daughter to a wave, and then part 2 of her going nuts is that she loses Michael in the windows of the world. He's up there meeting his agent, and they're talking and chatting, and we all know it was a beautiful day, and he sees something shiny, and then it's all about him and his agent and another lady that just happened to be crawling by. Smoke, fire. I mean, it's very descriptive and very visceral. And they're looking downstairs that are gone. There's some smoke, fire, and the fire's catching. They're burning, and by this time they're hanging on the window, and they've realized they've got to make. I mean, it's very visceral. So I introduced people to these jumpers. So when she hears that her husband Michael has died as one of these jumpers, it's quite a scene that I created there too. It's very 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 real and personal, you know. And they jump and they're holding hands and their hands break apart, and I think Michael's sailing on his back and the lady screaming she's got kids, and before they jump, and when they jump they're kind of floating in the air, and it kind of fades out halfway down. But the last thing Michael hears is his daughter, who died in the first part of this film, this script, at the water. He hears her saying, "Daddy, I love you, Daddy," and then it fades out to the next section of the play, which is Billy walking into the casino, meets the demon, and ends up getting eaten by the demon. There's also another character in there named John Armstrong. It's the next con. So it's a very visceral, very good story, and spooky. So I think that's one thing that I'm working on right now, and I think I've got a production company in LA that might be interested in hearing about that, hoping. And the other one is A Soldier's Final Act. Originally it was called A Soldier's Final Act of Redemption, and then I changed it to A Soldier's Final Act of Kindness, and then I just changed it to A Soldier's Final Act. Because again, and this is my most recent work. I got another one working, but this one is my most recent completed work. And again, 2 years ago, the Vietnam veteran suicide rate was 22 a day. I don't know what it is now. It's still high. And now we're going to have new veterans that are suffering too. So 22 a day, but we don't know who they were. The second reason of adolescent deaths is suicide, which is our teenagers. So I wanted to make sure that everybody met one of these people. So I created this whole first act, which is like a one-man play. This veteran, an officer, is talking to ghosts. He's got all these ghosts. He's reaching out for the VA for help. He's reaching to his therapist, reaching to his doctor. He's finding dead ends. Therapist's on vacation. She can see him on the 16th. Doctor has to talk to him tomorrow at 2 o'clock. So he's very frustrated, and he's rented this hotel room to kill himself. He's in full uniform, and during the process, he bleeds to the camera and talks about the guilt and things like that. And the ghost, he's talking to this ghost, and the spotlight comes up, and there's a ghost there, and another light over here, and there's a ghost, and he's telling these stories with these ghosts, and he's suffering. And in the meantime, he's trying to reach people on the phone. Walks out of the room stormy and comes back in. You hear crashing and stuff, and he paces and he sits and he paces. And I'm giving people an opportunity to feel this veteran. Sometimes he's not saying anything. He's just walking around, and I've got a soundtrack behind him that's just awesome. And so it's very, very moving. And eventually he shoots himself. If it was play for him, he'd walk off stage and you'd hear a gunfire. But if it was film, he'd shoot himself in the temple, So he dies. So then the same hotel room, I don't know if you're familiar, the idea I got for this was from HBO's Room 104. You familiar with that? It's a little spooky thing that they do different stories in there. I thought that was pretty good. So I decided I can do that. I can do this all in one room. So he goes into this room, he rents this room, and he eventually kills himself. And then Act 2 is a father, a mother, and a teenage daughter, 15-ish, 16-ish. And they have come to this hotel room because the father's son, his glorious son, who he loves dearly, is a football star, quarterback for his high school team. He's been injured, so he's in the hospital. So they're there visiting their son, who was out of town on a game, got hurt, and they're visiting their son at the hospital. So they've just come into the hotel room. And the daughter's goth. She, Goth, goth. She's got the green hair and the black and green hair and the black lips and the piercings and black nails and boots. And she's got a lot of problems. She's got problems with bullying and even in questioning her own sexuality, because her friend kissed her once. So she's got this constant thing going with her dad. Her dad, of course, is rah-rah about the son, the football star that's hurt. And he's never gotten along with the daughter because she's a mess, as far as he's concerned. So he's always criticizing her, always telling her, and it gets heated. And eventually he storms out and says, Joanna, I'll be down at the bar for 5 minutes. I'm going to the hospital. If you want to join me, leaves the daughter. Leaves the wife and the daughter, and the wife is drawn to that. She was the mediator between the two of them. Now she's drawn to follow the husband. So she says, we have to go to the hospital. And she says, what about me? I want to go. And she says, well, I don't think it's a good thing. So eventually the mother takes a pill from her purse, a Xanax, Valium, old days, but takes a sedative and goes to be with the father. The daughter cries at the door, and then she sees she's left her purse, so she pulls out her mother's bottle of pills, and she starts popping the pills. She's killing herself. She's decided she's going to kill her. There's a lot of discussion and a lot of things that goes on, but I'm not going to tell you the whole play, of course, but it's very, very real, a lot of emotions, good music, and the girl's killing herself. And the end of that scene is her collapsing on the bed. The next scene, or the final act if it's a play, suddenly there's smoke and a light, and here's this veteran again, and he's meandering, he's wandering around. He doesn't know where he's at or what's going on. So he's a spirit, and he's wandering around for a while. And then he sees the little girl on the bed, and she just popped her last couple pills, and she's collapsing, and he kind of talks to her, and it freaks her out. She can't see him. Of course, we can see him, but we know that he's spirit form. So she can't see him, so she thinks he's going nuts. Is somebody talking to me? Am I losing my mind or whatever? And she runs and hides and runs around trying to find who's talking to her, and eventually she realizes that somebody's talking to her, and at the same time, he doesn't realize what's going on. He doesn't know where he's at, what he's done. So he's meandering and wondering, and he sees this little girl in trouble. Now, the last thing a person should do with a soldier, like I mentioned before, a veteran, is to tell him how to fix things. Don't tell us how to fix things. Just I had 2 phone calls. At one time, I had enough trouble where I was going to drive out from Idaho take my truck, drive out into Montana during the winter, as far as I could until I didn't have gas to come back. You know, I was that close. And my lady called home, and I had received 2 phone calls, and one was from my younger sister, who proceeded to tell me how she fixed things, how her friend fixed things, and then she got around to telling me how I could fix things, and that's when I hung up on her. I know years later, she was just trying to love me and help me. And then I got another phone call from an older brother that was a Navy veteran that just happened to be on a ship, an aircraft carrier when I was in the war. And he said, Michael, I understand you're having some troubles. If you need anybody to talk to, just give me a call. So you know which one of those calls meant the most, right? So this guy sees this girl. So the reason I was talking about that is he's not going to tell her how to fix things. He's still kind of here and kind of not there. And at one point he says, "Oh, wait a minute, now I did something." And he's talking to her about suicide. He sees what are you doing? And she's talking about the pills and talking about her daddy doesn't love her and this and that and all the things she's having. And he's talking to her through conversation, just through conversation about school and stuff like that. He convinces her that maybe there's a different way. And yes, maybe her daddy does love her. And then he's realizing what he did. And then he's talking about, I made a mistake. I didn't consider, I thought about the people I love, which we all do, because we're self-centered for the most part. We see the world from our core. And I didn't consider who loved me. Who we love is important, but who loves us is just as important, if not more important. So when he cuts that cord, when he makes a decision to cut that cord, that golden cord of love, it's a two-way street. And so when he made that decision to cut that cord, he cheated his young daughter and his wife out of life too. So he talks about that, and then he realizes, well, wait a minute, I was right there. I did, and then he realizes what he did, and it really, lost and horrified. So he helps this girl through conversation to try and hang on. About this time, the parents come back from visiting their son, and they see the daughter, and she just collapses. She's ready to die, gasping for air. And the father runs to her, and then he sees the open pill bottle, and they're arguing about how many did you take? I don't know. It was full, and they're in a panic. Get some water, and so they're running around he's trying to revive her, and the spirit of the veteran sees this. Of course, they don't see him, and eventually he meanders over, looks over the father's shoulder, and reaches over the father's shoulder and touches the little girl in the heart and says, "It's not your time, little girl." And then she gasps to life all of a sudden, and he meanders off, and the father's hugging her, and she was just talking to him. And he says, "I'm leaving now." She says, "You're going now?" And the mother says, "Well, what did she say?" And he said, "We're going now." He said, "No, we're never leaving you again." And so blah, blah, blah. So there's a lot of love and affection and hugging, and she's alive. And eventually the veteran wanders off, still wondering where he's at and what the hell's happening. And a light appears, and he goes into the light and dissipates. He's redeemed. And that's the end. So but I've included, two things in my latest work are very prevalent, very timely. One is the jumpers. I got that is amazing. I mean, I would share some with you if I had it in front of me. And the other is the veteran. Now, if you give me a half second, I'll I'll more than happy to share the scene of the jumpers.
Yeah, please do.
Yeah. Give me half a second.
Yeah, take your time. And I want to remind everybody, if you want to learn more about Michael, I do have information in show notes up above or down below, depending on where you're watching or listening to us. And Philip did put the number for the suicide hotline. Obviously, if you are having these types of feelings, definitely reach out.
And then for international viewers from other countries, they can go to suicide.org, which lists all the phone numbers for every country in the world.
Oh, wait. No, I don't have the jumper scene. Darn it, I really wanted to use that. I have it on my computer. Oh, wait, I have my laptop right here.
Oh, perfect.
A good writer always carries his laptop wherever he goes.
Oh, yeah.
I always had my station right next to my bed because when you have an idea and you wake up with it, the first thing you want to do is make a note. And if you turn over and go back to sleep, it's gone by the morning.
Yep.
So I had all my stuff right next to my bed. And if I had an idea, I'd roll over, start writing, and I'd end up writing from 3 to 5 in the morning sometimes. I did a radio interview once, and they said, well, you're the first playwright I've interviewed, but I've talked to writers, and they say that they have to sit at their workstation for 4 hours a day. And what do you do? And I said, well, I certainly don't do that because that would bore me to death. But when it comes, it's a flood. And when it does come, you got to get it out, just like those steno pens. All right, let me see if I can find this real quick.
Phil, is that something you do as well? I know you're a writer. You keep a notepad by the bed?
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I actually usually keep it in my car because a lot of my ideas pop up while I'm driving.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I think I got it on here. I know I got it on. So you're a writer?
Yeah, I've had a number of short stories published. Yeah.
No kidding. That's great.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, here we go.
Excellent.
Jumpers. Billy. All right, here we go. Oh, that's the cover letter. Hang on. Well, here's a cover letter for it. I wrote this story I told you that part. Okay. All right, let me get this file in front of me. It's great stuff. Here it is, Billy and the One-Armed Bandit, finally. Okay, jumpers. Yeah, this is the original script that I had written, and this is all the rewrite part that I included. And this is what they call in the can, to be filmed.
Yep.
And the associate producer I was working with left HBO about that time, and also Tales from the Crypt left America and went to England and then kind of faded away. But we have a lot of other avenues now, I think. Okay, so you remember that story I told you about my son and his stepdad with his motorcycle?
Yes, I do.
Okay, that's where this is going to begin. Getting close now. Okay, fade. Okay, exterior day highway. Michael is also on the freeway. He is on his brand new Harley Davidson, roaring toward the city of New York. Camera pans to see Michael crossing the Brooklyn Bridge going into Manhattan. Camera pans more and we see the World Trade Center standing majestically above the city. Michael stops and pulls into the One World Trade Center parking garage. Takes off his glove, his heavy jacket and helmet, stores his gloves and jacket and bike. Hang on. And bike compartment, and carries the helmet into the building as he enters. Okay, he's in the lobby. Michael enters the vast lobby and walks to the elevator banks. The lobby is full of people coming and going. He pushes 106 for the windows on the World Restaurant. He gets into the elevator with 3 other people. The elevator door closes. He walks into the reception desk. There's a couple waiting to be seated. The host seats them and then returns to greet Michael. Welcome to the windows of the world, sir. Whoop. Laptops. Get something here in front of me that I don't want in front of me. Hang on. There it goes. Okay. Thank you. May I leave my helmet here? Host, certainly, sir. Is this your first visit to the windows, sir? And yes, in fact, this is my first visit to New York City. Well, it's a grand day for it, sir. The host points outward toward the panoramic view of the city. The camera does a complete 360 pan showing Manhattan below. It is a beautiful and clear morning. Michael, I'm supposed to meet my agent here for breakfast, Mr. Jerry Feinstein. Has he by chance arrived yet? Yes, sir. He's right this way. The host leads Michael to the table. There are other people having breakfast at different tables throughout the restaurant. Jerry stands as he sees Michael approaching. Michael, how are you? So nice to see you. They greet with a friendly handshake. They are genuinely happy to see one another. Michael, I'm good, Jerry. This has been quite a trip. Good to hear that. And what a lovely morning. Did you have any trouble finding your way around the city? Michael, no problem at all. I mean, the World Trade Center is quite a beacon. I brought a new Harley. I bought a new Harley for the trip. I figured it would help me in the city traffic. Oh, you got that right. The city is a beast to drive, and I guess that's why most of us use the subway. A Harley, huh? Wow. I've always wanted a Harley, to feel the open road under my wings. I can only imagine. They sit. Jerry says, Michael, there are many things happening. Your story is moving, both in L.A. and here in New York. In fact, just yesterday, Richard in L.A. had lunch with Spielberg again. Michael, really? Jerry, it's the real deal, my friend. Hollywood is all over it. You're going to be famous. Michael smiles as he is overwhelmed. He bows his head so Jerry won't see his tearing eyes. The waiter appears and they order eggs, juice, and coffee. The two of them are enjoying their breakfast, their friendship, and their conversation as the camera begins a slow 360 pan again of the beautiful clear sky. Other people are finishing their breakfast and begin leaving the restaurant. There are a few people at different tables throughout the dining room. At the table, Michael and Jerry have just finished their breakfast and are chatting. There are 3 other people remaining. Jerry says, I can't believe that she left you, not after what you've been through together with the loss of your little girl. Michael, I guess she just needed some time. It was very hard on her. Jerry reaches over and touches Michael's arm. On both of you. I'm so sorry, Michael. No one should have to lose their child, especially in such a tragic accident. Michael says, thank you, Jerry. Something that's with me every second of every day. I guess that's why the roar of the motorcycle helps. Keeps our mind off of things, if you know what I mean. Jerry, oh, I almost forgot. Richard is supposed to call me at 9 this morning. What time is it? Michael looks at his watch. It's 8:45. He should be calling any minute now, then. With good news on his meeting with Spielberg, I'm sure. They both sit quietly for a minute, sipping coffee, allowing their food to settle. Michael again looks at his watch and sees that it is now 8:46. Camera pans to clock on wall for close-up. As he's looking out the window, Michael sees the glimmer of something shiny. In the next instant, they feel a tremendous jolt to the building. Michael, what the hell was that? Jerry, I don't know. It felt like an earthquake or something. They sit still for a second. The host and the waiter both quickly leave the restaurant. Michael looks around and sees that the other people are also very worried. Michael says, something's not right. The restaurant temperature begins to rise, and suddenly there seems to be a vast amount of hot, steamy smoke billowing in through the doors and vents. They look quickly outside and can see debris and fire from a few floors below. Michael, let's get the hell out of here, Jerry. This just isn't right. Jerry, this way. They're in the hallway. Jerry leads the two of them to another set of doors leading to the staff elevator. There is smoke and intense heat everywhere. They push the elevator button, but it does not respond. They're having trouble breathing. Michael, it's too hot. Get down on the floor, Jerry. Crawl to the stairway. Jerry has a complete look of shock and fear in his face. In the hallway, Jerry follows as they crawl on their hands and knees towards the emergency exit sign. Michael pushes open the door and is shocked to see that the stairway is completely gone. Fire and smoke billow upward toward the open door. Michael, God damn it. Jerry, what? The stairway, it's gone. Jerry takes a quick look down the open hole. They notice one of the remaining patrons has been following them on her hands and knees. Jerry, oh shit, what are we going to do? Michael, back into the restaurant, quick. The smoke is blinding as the three crawl back into the restaurant. There are 2 other people crawling on the floor in the opposite direction. They quickly disappear into the smoke. The heat by this time is overwhelming and explodes one of the windows outward. The cracking sound of fire can be heard. Jerry says, what do we do, Michael? Michael says, I don't know. No way out. We're trapped. Jerry rolls over on his back and retrieves his cell phone from his pocket. He dials 911, but gets a busy signal. He tries again with the same result. God damn it, Jerry says. He throws his cell phone across the room. By this time, the fire has pushed its way into the restaurant and is now climbing the curtains. They are panting with fear and lack of oxygen. Michael, get to the open window, Jerry. Michael looks at the woman and can see near panic in her eyes. He tries his best to reassure her. Quick, crawl to the open window so we can breathe. All three get to the window and Michael tears away the burning curtains. They stand with their heads sticking outward through the broken window. Michael tries to shield the woman from the fire and heat. They fill their lungs with as much air as possible. They look below and can see only fire, debris, and smoke. Gary says, "Are we going to die, Michael? I don't want to die. I don't want to die." They continue hanging out of the opening of the fire as the fire reaches them. They are burning. There's nothing but smoke and fire pushing them. The smoke forcibly charges past them and out the open window. They are unable to breathe. The noise of the fire is deafening, so they shout to hear one another. The woman begins a slow and agonizing scream in fear and agony. Smoke and occasional flames can be seen pushing past the three of them as they hang on to the window. Michael looks at the woman. "What is your name?" "Patricia." "I'm Michael, Patricia, and this is Jerry." Patricia nods her head and is too frightened to utter a response. Patricia says, "Are we going to die?" Michael says, "We have one of two choices here. I think we're too high for anyone to get to us. It looks like we either stay and get burned alive or we jump." Patricia starts her low growling, but this time holds back the scream. She's crying. "I have children." Michael hugs her close as Jerry joins in. The smoke and fire once again reminds them that they do not have much time. Michael says, "I will hold your hand if you like." "Would you please?" Michael clasps Patricia's hand with his own. He looks toward Jerry, who is now so frightened he is frozen in place, hanging tightly to the side of the building. Jerry says, "You're crazy. I don't want to die." Michael, "I don't either, but we have no choice. This is it, my friend. This is it." The flames are rushing out over their heads. Michael is standing in the middle and looks toward Patricia and then toward Jerry. Michael then looks at Jerry and grabs his hand. Jerry looks at Michael and nods. Michael says, "Are you ready?" Both nod and they jump. Jerry's grip breaks loose and he falls uncontrollably. Michael and Patricia almost glide in a free fall on their backs. Their hands are still clasped together. And they're falling. Their grasp breaks and they slowly drift alongside one another. As Michael glides in the still air, he has a flashback of that day on the beach and sees Sarah's smiling face. As he falls, he hears her calling out to him, "Daddy, I love you, Daddy." Fade out.
Wow.
Powerful
So
stuff.
there. I wanted to give people a chance to know who they were, to let them live it,
No. We're getting an echo.
I'm sorry. Might be because I had that on.
Right.
I think I had somebody trying to get hold of me. Do you hear me okay?
I can hear you okay. Can you hear us?
I'm turning my phone off.
Okay.
Okay. And I think my computer's off.
I want to remind everybody, definitely check the show notes up above or down below, depending on where you're watching or listening to us, to learn more about Michael. Extremely powerful stuff, Michael. It's so you mentioned that you consulted for HBO, and I know you're looking for other avenues for your stuff now. HBO has changed significantly. Actually, it is with the new management. Have you thought about reaching out to them again, because they're looking for content?
Stephen, as you know, Stephen is my publicist. He's connected me today with a production company, and I don't know which one, but it's just I feel like things are just now people are just starting to take notice and listen and hear it, and it's just a matter of getting the right avenue and the right people to read it.
Yeah.
Granted, these people read so much work, but it's like It's like I turned around and knocked on HBO's door after Tales from the Crypt left, and I knocked on HBO's door, and oh, he's gone. We got new people, and you'll have to, you know. I thought, forget that. So that was the runaround.
Yeah.
So I did write one thing, and that associate producer that left the company and went to Canada, I won't mention his name because he was really a great guy, but he took his files with him, and one of the things I'd written was called Dream Ventures, and it was about a person living their life. I think it was during the Revolutionary War, and mother came in and said, "Wake up, Michael, they're coming, they're coming." A lot of my characters are named Michael, by the way. They're coming, and he looks out the window and he sees all these gleaming bayonets, and it was a British coming. It was during the Revolutionary War, so he wakes up in this life, and he goes through this life, and he ends up getting wounded, and he ends up dying in his bed, and he floats to the ceiling, and he sees his body down below, and suddenly there's a white elongation that snaps free, and then he's into another life. Dream Ventures, and then he at one point he breaks into the quiet by a running river, and somebody says, "Don't go by the river. That's you know what grandfather said. That's don't go down." And then somebody else said, "Don't go down by the river. That's where the crazies are." And then you realize that the character that he is on this life is a deer, so he becomes a deer, and then he ends up dying, goes to another life. So I wrote that, and when he left, he took those files with him. It wasn't long after that Quantum Leap came out with Scott Bakula.
Yeah.
And I swear to today that somebody somewhere got my idea, my writing, and put it to work. Yeah. Which explains why you can have one network with a show and then another network with a mirror show and another network. They all have the same show, just different ways. And at that time, that was during my post-Vietnam 10-year drift, and they said, "Well, why don't you sue? How am I going to sue? I'm an individual writer, and that's a big conglomerate with 50 lawyers and millions of dollars. I mean, what chance would I have?" So, but I today swear that I had something to do with Quantum Leap. I do swear today, and but sometimes we take our beatings. You have to learn to take your rejections, right? I mean, not everything's go. But lately, I feel like something's opening up. I met this lady. She's 5 years younger than I am, and she's beautiful. And so, I'm actually going to get married first. So I've drifted my way through life and found somebody that's worth staying with, But she's a wonderful woman, and we're getting married on October 3rd. So.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
It's crazy how, the different paths our lives take. It's just
yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, I feel very fortunate and very lucky. I really do.
Awesome.
I still exercise and don't smoke and drink.
No. I know we are running a little bit on time. I wanted to make sure, Johnny and Philip, did you have any questions for
Yeah,
Mike?
feel free, guys.
Yeah, Johnny, what do you got? I'll let you go first, man.
I guess it's typically what we do at the Dark Discussions Network, among other things, is movie reviews. And I'm just curious if there are any movies that you've watched in your lifetime that really hit home or resonated with you that are like wartime, specifically Vietnam war movies that you've watched over the years that you would say is either absolute baloney or something you really loved that you thought it was realistic.
It's probably surprising my answer to that, but I wanted to mention a good friend of mine that just died recently. He wrote "We Were Soldiers Once and Young," Joseph L. Galloway. He wrote
the Mel Gibson film, right?
Yeah, Mel Gibson. That was half of the book. The book is excellent. The reason I thought of it is because I'm going to his funeral, as a matter of fact, on the 18th, his service. But the reason I talk about it because that's like the Bible of our war. We Were Soldiers Once and Young. The book, the movie was good, but it left out half of the story. So the book is really good. And then Stolen Valor by a guy named Burkett about all the phonies that are, because we never see a sailor or a soldier or Marine anymore. It's always a sniper, recon, SEAL, that blah, 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 special forces, special ops. Nobody's just, I knew at one time I was Ranger trained, so I knew the Rangers in Vietnam, maybe 5,000 Rangers and special forces. And I bet you I met 100,000 when I was going to the bars. Nobody was just a soldier anymore. So Stolen Valor is a good one. Answer to your question, Johnny, the movies. John Landis made a movie called Twilight Zone. Good movie, but It's the one Vic Morrow died in.
That's right.
But it was the biggest insult to the Vietnam soldier ever. In one scene at night, Vic Morrow drops into this water and he sees a snake. And then all of a sudden you hear this blaring rock and roll music and all this sloshing through the water. And here comes these American soldiers, and they're all bunched up, like 10 or 20 of them, all bunched up together. One guy's got a radio on his shoulder blaring music at night, just passing a joint, and they're talking about they wish they hadn't fragged Lieutenant so-and-so the night before. And I thought, my God, what a bum, man. That's why people think so little of us. And then Rambo. Rambo was ridiculously stupid. Everybody thought we're going to run around, we're going to kill everybody, you know? Just stupid stuff like that. The good ones, Platoon, terrible. I don't even want to put good with Platoon. It was a nice movie, a good movie, and the first part showed some soldiers in the field, but the storyline was just stupid, the drugs and all that. We were in the infantry. We didn't see USO shows. We didn't see all that party. We didn't party in hooches and do smoke with guns. And, it's obvious to me Oliver Stone had a problem with authority when he was in the Army. And he gave a rear echelon soldier story. We were too busy trying to stay alive and trying to keep each other alive to be stoned out of our minds. And who in the world would want to do that? Maybe the war changed later, but that's the war I knew. Good movies. Hamburger Hill shows you what it was like to be an infantry soldier and experiencing death and cause, or fighting for each other, and their attitudes and the things that they talk about, and very, very real. Full Metal Jacket, Stanley Kubrick. I'm a great Stanley Kubrick fan. Full Metal Jacket was a great movie, great training, pretty good portrayal of city fighting like Way. My war was jungle fighting, but that was a good portrayal of city fighting. Perfect. That was a good movie. And the one you mentioned, Phil.
We were soldiers.
We Were Soldiers. That's a good one. And the one that plays my friend, Joseph L. Galloway, was played by Barry Pepper.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And when I just had breakfast with Joseph, his wife, Gracie, and his little therapy dog, 79 years old, in Norfolk. We had breakfast, and we talked about that battle and stuff, and it happened to be on June 6th. We didn't realize it was D-Day. And his wife, Gracie, who's a doctor, great gal, loved him to death, asked me, she said, you were a lieutenant? And I said, yeah. And she said, and you're still alive? I said, yeah. I mean, the attrition rate of a lieutenant under fire was like 15 seconds. And I think I went over with 126 officers. I think about 9 of us came back, and all of us were wounded. So all I can say, it was a bloody mess. And then I sure wish we'd gotten treated better when we came home, and I wish the movies had been better. So in answer to you, there's a quick answer to your question, Johnny. Appreciate the question, man.
Yeah, that was a great question.
Thanks for the answer.
Yeah, excellent question, John. I have a question for you too, Mike. And that was, offline we were talking about World War II a little bit, and then obviously we talked about Vietnam, and you were there and stuff. Have you worked with and discussed a lot of this stuff with Korean vets too? Because as we know, that's the forgotten war, and they had almost as many or probably equal amount of people that died there as in Vietnam.
Yeah, it has 40-some thousand. Yeah.
Yeah. So what's your experience talking to those folks? Since a lot of them,
I had an uncle that was a Korean vet, infantry, and he died unfortunately of a smoking disease, but I had him, and I used to play golf with a group of veterans, World War II and Korean veterans, every Monday throughout the state and North Carolina. And so they're a lot like we are. They're the same boat that we were in. They just went over alone, came home alone, And like I'm afraid the Afghanistan veterans are going to experience this too. But things are different. And when I think we began, I said it's bittersweet to me. I want to thank them too, and I don't want to be like the World War II veteran to the Vietnam veteran. Well, we won our war. You're a bunch of crybabies, because of the movies and stuff. So, but I don't want to ever be like that. And the Mogadishu Rangers, they're kind of forgotten too. The ones that had that over there, that was horrible. But I have bittersweet because now anybody gets near a uniform, they're a hero. They're a hero. So, and it's sad to me. It saddens me. But yet I understand, It took years for me to understand, but it saddens me. And now people are saying, I've had people even in the 80s call me baby killer. I've had people even more recent say the demonstrators were heroes. The demonstrators were heroes. What about your soldiers? I like the fact that we're bringing refugees, giving them freedom, giving them the new world, life, but when we came home in the mid 60s and late 60s and 70s, we brought refugees with us, and our government, I think it was down in Texas. I want to say Port Lucas, Texas, but I'm not sure that's a place, but it was one of the ports down there. The Vietnamese refugees, they gave them a fishing boat because they were fishermen. They gave them a fishing boat. And we're talking about a boat, not a little dinghy, and $50,000. And I'm thinking, man, we didn't get anything. So the Korean vets are right there with us. I really relate to the Korean vets. They were really good at what a lot of Vietnam veterans were good at, which was hiding. So and that's what I'm trying to do. The proudest thing that I'm doing right now, I talked about leading soldiers and burying soldiers. The proudest thing I'm doing right now is trying to help soldiers through my writing lift their head. Don't hang the head. Don't walk with the head. Don't be ashamed. Remember the guys that died that they knew. Lift your head and remember that what you did is something that most people never get to do in their entire lives. And to be proud, to hold your head up in pride. It's very difficult for me to hold my head up in pride back then. But now through my writing and stuff, and I have enough people saying, thank you. I had Agent Orange, so I lost bone in my upper teeth, so losing my teeth naturally from an Agent Orange exposure. Terrible battle that I ended up in Agent Orange. But to go to an oral surgeon and say, and be introduced to his staff, say, this is Mr. Myers. He's a war hero. He's a hero. And I think, wow, man, that almost makes me want to cry because it took forever. It took forever to people to say. And now I feel like that all the time. With Stephen, with people, with the guys, you guys, it feels so wonderful. It's like I'm coming out of a shell or something, because you can hide behind writing. I can be whoever I want in these things, but it actually exposes me a little bit, That's a little vulnerable, yeah. I don't think that'll carry with, like that scar, PTSD, I'll carry that with me until I die. And I appreciate people saying fix it, and because they love me. They're worried about me, we all worry about our veterans. Here's something, I'll tell you, I'd like to finish with this thing. Here's something I'm going to say, and I bet you there's not one of you, I've never met anybody that disagrees with it. A combat veteran, Marine, whoever, combat veteran who fought for our country, especially the ones that received bodily harm, your Purple Heart recipients, but any of them, the combat soldier should never want for anything, should never want a home, should not be the 25 or 30,000 homeless, should not be the 25 or 30,000 in prison for drug charges or whatever. They should never want for anything. They should never want for food. They should never want for medicine. They should never want for a home or transportation. They should never want for anything. But our country has not taken care of our soldiers. So they took me at 17 years old, put me through Ranger leadership training and night patrolling. They took me through jungle training in Panama with the Special Forces. I went to a war. I fought a war like Americans fight wars. I was raised on Davy Crockett and John Wayne and just got in there and did my duty like the rest of my family, just another patriotic American. And they never taught us how to not do that. It's like a whistle blew. Okay, thank you. Go home. And then everybody, even your closest people, forget about it. It's over. Take you back to that Sausalito moment. I left my troops the day before. And that's where it began. All I needed was, hey, like we get now. Good job. Like I see troops, I'll shake every troop's hand I see. carry that flag high and thank you for serving. You know, I'm bittersweet. You see the answer to that, and the Korean veterans, and I almost had resentment for the World War II veterans, but not any longer. And I certainly don't want the young veterans to think of me that we think of them like the World War II veterans thought of us, and not all of them did. But man, I know that. So when people say thank you for your service and we're sorry the way you were treated, you know, that's good, but it's a little late. Right? It's a little late. I'm 75. How many more years do I have? You know. So.
Yeah, we you know, as a nation definitely need to take a better look at how our veterans are treated.
Get them off the streets. Get them. And I'm one of those veterans that think that we should just do away with the big VA hospital things, all this bureaucracy, and just give them an insurance card and let them go get their top medical care like everybody else. The last place I want to die is a VA hospital. You know. So, we can do a better job. Go ahead, John.
Well, I can tell you you know, men like you are not who lost to these wars. It was the politicians at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. That's the reality of it. So,
well, and the Congress too. Don't forget them.
I don't think it was political, because in Vietnam, the war developed a life of its own. We went through 5 presidents. It became a thing, and we just fought and died to keep each other alive. But I don't think it had anything to do with it. It had to do with society. Society was out there with the placards and the signs, and it wasn't our government. It was our people. I didn't turn my back on our government, but I did, because our government's a fine government. I mean, we might get astray sometimes, but it works right. So, but
yeah, that's a good point. It was the civilians that were the problem.
That's why it hurt me when even my younger sister said, "Well, demonstrators were heroes," and she said, "Yeah, I was demonstrating." I said, "Well, wait a minute now. You were 7. You weren't demonstrating, in memory." But I know that she just loved me, and everybody just loved me. And I didn't talk to one sister that we're about to lose, because she said, I was at my mother wanted me to wear my uniform, which I did, and there was a little reception, and she was behind me, and I was going through the food line, and I saw these meatballs, and I thought, wow, man, meatballs. I just came out of the field, right? Eating sea rations and crap. So I see this meatball, and it's a little fork, so I get this meatball and fork, and I'm going, man, a meatball. So I go like this, and before I could take it off the fork by my mouth, and my sister said, "No, don't do that, don't do that." No, okay. So I took it off there and ate it. And then I'm in the back room, and my cousins that are my age and so forth, I'm sitting, I remember I had a drink, coat's open, my uniform jacket's open, and somebody just asked me what it was like over there. What was it, the common question, what was it like over there? And I'm sitting there kind of rolling my drink, trying to get together an answer that would be appropriate to fill their need. Blood, guts, people blown to pieces, a dead enemy blown in half, green flies, heat, sweating, rain, fear. And before I could answer, that same sister walked by and leaned in my face and said, "Michael, Vietnam's over." And I went, "Oh, sorry." And I shut up. And I didn't talk to her for 10 years. 10 years I didn't talk to her. And then eventually I realized that she was just trying to help, She was just trying to help. Just like Jack Jones told me in front of that mirror, I was the one with the problem, not them. So if I can help other veterans realize that maybe they're the problem, and it's okay for people to not understand, like their relationships. If they have a relationship, you can't put that relationship on the same pedestal that you had a soldier or a Marine on your left or right. That's a life or death. They can't equal that. They can't stand up to that. It's unfair to expect them to understand that as you do. So, just these guys, I mean, the problem is we're all gung-ho, Johnny gung-ho, we're ready to go. Americans do it well. I mean, we do it better than anybody in the world. We fight these wars, and we fight them good, and the problem is they don't know what to do after. We don't know what to do after. Like The people coming back from Afghanistan, the soldiers and stuff coming back from Afghanistan now. Do you know any of them? We don't know them. Yeah, they're going to go hide. They're going to go hide. Some of them are going to talk too much, and here's the law. The ones that talk the most saw the least. Guaranteed. I talk a lot now because I'm on the podcast, and I'm blah, blah, blah. But it's good. It's good. It's a venting for me. It's like I have a therapist that's available. I can talk to the therapist, but this is therapeutic too. And the fact that y'all appreciate it is really neat. Y'all, I said y'all. I was in a French play one time, and was from Virginia. Yeah. Supposed to be a Frenchman, and I said, "No, y'all go on." Nobody even noticed it, but I had threw a y'all into a French play. That was funny.
Well, Michael,
any other questions? You had a question?
Yeah, Leo, what's your question, Leo?
Actually, I'm dumbfounded. I mean, it's I asked my questions earlier.
Yeah. Okay. We're good. We're good.
I do have a personal question I'll ask once we shut down, though. Actually, one question I did have is so for those watching or listening, if a vet has some issues, what are the resources? Where should he look first for help? Suicide is not the answer. Like I said before, suicide is unfair to the people that love you. The answer lies within the VA, the Veteran Outreach Centers. Go to a Veteran Outreach Center. Listen, knock on the door. They're going to treat you like a king. Get in there and start venting. Get it out. Get it out of you. Don't walk around like a loaded time bomb. It's only going to hurt yourself. So that's where I would go. You know, I forgot to mention, I have a chaplain from Fort Story, Virginia, which is one of our amphibious training bases with Marines and Navy SEALs. And he was a former SEAL, a former submariner, 28 years in the Navy, and he's going to do our service in his whites, which I thought was amazing. We're going to get married on the beach because I was a converted Catholic, but the lady I'm marrying is not. So I got a Protestant chaplain, and I was thinking, well, I can deal with that because he's Navy, he's a former SEAL, submariner, 28 years, got all the ribbons, and so I thought, all right, that's good. I can do that. And I can always have it blessed. I used to say, just roll me under a tree when I die and let nature take its course, but have a priest come and give me last rites just in case I miss something. So it's the same thing that I'm probably going to have a priest bless our union, which takes a couple minutes, you know, so to be complete. So, but I was proud and very accepting to having a combat SEAL who became a chaplain, who was a submariner. I mean, that's amazing to me. That's amazing. And he's going to be in his whites, which I just thought was really appropriate. My father would be happy. So that's good. The only time I saluted my father was walking on his last ship that he served. 31 years retired. I saw him cry when his mother died. I saw him cry when he got out of the Navy. He invited me on his ship before I was out. And he was the OOD on the ship. So he wanted me to wear my uniform. It was Thanksgiving. We were going to have Thanksgiving dinner on the ship with him. And I walked on board, and my father and I saluted each other. And I got out the day I was due to make captain. So he was a CWO4. So I actually outranked him. So we saluted each other, and then I saluted the flag at the ship, you know, like a good naval officer would. Yeah. And he said, "Welcome aboard, sir." And I said, "Thank you, sir." And it was like my dad and I saluted once in our life, and that was it. And he was saluting and I didn't know. People told me because it was a lot of news. He was carrying our casualty lists every day. They'd watch every night. They'd watch the news, and they'd watch little videos, and they said, "Was that Michael? Was that Michael?" So they were on me every day, and I didn't know that. You know, I didn't know that. Yeah. So anyway, sorry. Ramble on. No, don't be sorry. The stories are just incredible. I want to remind everybody, definitely check the show notes up above or down below, depending on where you're watching or listening to us. And I have all the information for Michael there. Michael, where do you like people interacting with you, or how can they reach out to you?
Probably my webpage, which is www.Michael Stephen Myers, and it's spelled STEPHEN, and it's MYERS, not MEY. So michaelstephenmyers.com. That's my webpage and my email there. That's my personal email. And there's also, if you wanted to contribute to having our plays produced or whatever, there's also a PayPal button there. But please feel free to contact me. You know, I'd like to share 2 life memories that I have, if you have another second.
Yeah, totally.
When I was a kid, my father was the head of the submarine fleet, the mothball submarine fleets in Philadelphia. So we lived outside of Philadelphia. My 2 older brothers and myself, I was real young, went to Connie Mack Stadium, and because my father's favorite team was Stan Musial on St. Louis Cardinals. So, and Richie Ashburn, I remember, was playing for the Phillies. So we're in above first base in that second level, and Connie Mack Stadium was like a box. And Stan Musial came up to bat, left-handed, and hit a ball so hard it zipped by me, hit the wall so loud with a big bang that it actually frightened this young kid. A memory that I'll never forget. I remember he hit a triple. Years later, I had a friend of mine that when I was playing golf with, and she just happened to be the vice president of written music for Chesbro's Music Company, which was the second largest in the country. And she said, I know Stan Musial. I said, really? She said, yeah, he comes to our convention every year. He plays harmonica and writes harmonica music. So I told her this story. I said, share it with Stan. So next time I saw her a few months later, she came back with a baseball autographed by Stan Musial for me because he thought it was such a great, great story. So then here's the other childhood memory I want to share. We were in Bremerhaven, Germany in the early 50s. I remember the bombed out buildings were still there, and the Nazi helmets were turned upside down and filled with sand and used as ashtrays. And I remember the ice cream, and I remember the dikes and the storks and the windmills. So my uncle happened to be in Kaiserslautern. He was the Air Force pilot. He and my cousins and his wife and stuff were up in Kaiserslautern North, and my father and our family were down south in Bremerhaven. So he packed us all up in his old Nash, and we drove up to Kaiserslautern, and we visited the Black Forest and the Black Castle. And when we got ready to leave after this few days visit, everybody was there to say goodbye, but my uncle couldn't be there. He had to fly that day. So we were driving home, and all of a sudden, the cars started pulling on the side. Remember, this is early 50s, so the war isn't that long over. So during the reconstruction of Germany, I guess it was. So all of a sudden, the cars are pulling on. Here's this big roar. And right over the roadway, right in front of us, probably it looked like 50 feet above the road, there's 2 jets with the pontoons on the end, pulling over right in front of the road. And in the front cockpit, I see our uncle, and he's going like this. He's waving goodbye. So he did say goodbye, and that's another childhood memory that you could only have if you were a military son, military family. So great memories. So
amazing.
I think that's the last 2 things I have to talk about.
Well, I know I believe you're going to be on with another show on the network, the Still Token with guys. So I'll get a chance to chat with you then as well. And I can't wait to hear more of your stories. And Johnny, where do you like people interacting with you?
I don't really have too many social media things. I just will appear from time to time on the Dark Discussions News Network, doing movie reviews and critiques with Philip. So you can find me there from time to time.
Sounds good. Philip.
Yes, as Johnny said, anybody can email darkdiscussions@aol.com and get in hold of myself or Johnny. But darkdiscussions.com is the website, and we have multiple podcasts over there, and you can see and hear myself and Johnny discuss films. I need another browser to have the Dark Discussion stuff open, and so I created an AOL account there, because you can't have 2 Gmail accounts and have them open at the same time. At least that you couldn't have when I first created these accounts. So
you can
well, not when I originally created them.
Well, I know now you can. But,
right. But I'm good with AOL. I've had that for now over 10 years, and in that account, because it has no spam, I get no spam on it at all.
I just like busting on you, Philip.
That's all right. It's all good.
And for me, just Google Leo Pond. You find a bunch of stuff. Could be true, could be not. I'm not going to say which is which, but I run a little thing called the Dorkening Podcast Network. Just about 40 shows on the network. A lot of awesome people doing a lot of awesome stuff, including the Still Token with guys, which you'll be seeing Michael in the future on that show as well. And with that, we'll catch you guys later. Bye.